The great hall of the alien palace shimmered with light from crystals hanging above. Each wall was carved with shapes of stars, rivers, and mountains from worlds that humans had never seen before. Guards stood in perfect lines, tall and silent, their armor glowing faintly with power. At the far end of the hall stood the throne, raised high above all others, and beside it was the one everyone whispered about, the Princess of the Empire. Her name was Princess Rin, and she was known for her pride as much as her beauty. She carried herself with the calm strength of someone who had never been challenged. Her skin carried a faint silver glow, her eyes sharp and bright like twin blades, and her long hair was braided with threads that sparkled like starlight. Many bowed their heads when she passed, for she had authority over fleets, armies, and courts. On that day, the humans had been invited to the palace. They were guests, but not yet equals. Humanity was young compared to the Empire, still learning the ways of the stars. To many of the aliens, humans were seen as fragile creatures, useful for small tasks but not worthy of true recognition. Aaron walked at the front of the human group. He was not a noble or a warrior, only a representative, chosen for his calm mind and steady words. His clothes were plain compared to the shining robes around him, yet his eyes were steady. As he stepped forward, he could feel the weight of hundreds of alien eyes on him. Some looked with curiosity, others with amusement, and a few with cold dismissal. The announcer called his name, his voice echoing across the crystal hall. Aaron stepped toward the throne and lowered his head respectfully. He felt the presence of Princess Rin watching him, her gaze like a beam of light cutting through shadow. He reached out his hand in a simple human gesture of greeting, something natural and warm to him. His hand brushed against the princess's, fingers soft for only a moment before he pulled it back. The hall froze in silence. Gasps spread among the aliens. Guards shifted their feet, gripping their weapons, unsure whether to act. The princess's expression turned sharp. She lifted her hand high, her silver glow brightening. Her voice, cold yet filled with fire, rang through the air. "Dare to touch me again, human, and you will regret it." The words struck the hall like a hammer. Courtiers whispered behind, their hands. To them, it was an outrage, a breach of sacred custom. No human had ever dared such closeness, not to one of the royal line. Aaron stood still. His heart beat fast, but he did not bow lower than he already had. He did not cower or beg for forgiveness. Instead, he lifted his head slowly, meeting her gaze. His voice, calm and even, carried across the room. "I meant no insult, Princess. It is the way of my people to greet with the hand, a sign of respect." The hall grew quiet again. Some aliens frowned. Others looked surprised that a human dared speak so directly. The princess narrowed her eyes. For a moment, the air felt heavy, as if the whole hall waited for her to command punishment. But she did not. Instead, she lowered her hand slowly, her gaze locked on him. Something strange flickered in her eyes. Not only anger, but curiosity. This human had not fallen to the floor in fear. He had not begged. He had not shaken. He had simply spoken. With steady words, the silence stretched until it became almost unbearable. Finally, the princess turned her head away, her braid catching the light. "Step back," she said firmly. Aaron obeyed, moving with quiet dignity. His fellow humans behind him exhaled with relief, though some looked at him with wide eyes, as if he had walked on a blade's edge and returned alive. The aliens whispered louder now, speaking of the strange courage of the human envoy. As the meeting continued, Aaron stood still among his group. Yet he could feel it. The princess's gaze returned to him more than once. She did not speak to him again that day, but the air between them was charged. The moment of contact, the warning she gave, and his calm reply had left a mark deeper than anyone in the hall yet understood. In the days to come, many would remember this meeting not as a simple gathering of humans and aliens, but as the moment. A young envoy stood before the proud princess of the empire and did not break. The next morning, the palace was alive with whispers. News of the human envoy's meeting with Princess Rin had spread through every hall and chamber. Servants repeated the story in hushed voices. Guards spoke of it during their watch, and the nobles debated it openly. Some said Iran had insulted the princess and should have been punished. Others admitted, though reluctantly, that his calm courage was unusual for a human. Aaron himself remained quiet. He did not boast of what had happened, nor did he seem shaken. He walked the palace halls with measured steps, observing the strange beauty around him. The ceilings glowed with shifting lights that looked like drifting stars, and the floors shone with polished stone from distant worlds. Yet beneath all this beauty, he could feel the weight of alien eyes upon him. Every step reminded him that he was a stranger in this place. Princess Rin, on the other hand, sat in her private chamber, replaying the moment in her mind. She was used to silence when she spoke, to heads bowing at the sound of her command. Yet the human had looked into her eyes without trembling. She had raised her hand to warn him, but he had not lowered himself any further. He had spoken to her, not as a master to a servant, but as one who believed in his own worth. This unsettled her, though she would never admit it aloud. Later that day, Aaron was called again, this time to the training hall. The summons came directly from Princess Rin. His fellow humans warned him to be cautious, but Aaron agreed without hesitation. He followed the guards through long corridors until they reached the wide chamber where alien soldiers trained. The hall was filled with strange machines and glowing weapons. Tall warriors sparred with blades of light, their movements swift and graceful. In the center of the hall stood the princess, her silver glow sharper than before, her eyes fixed on him. "You surprised my court yesterday," she said firmly. "Some believe you were bold. Others believe you were foolish. I intend to find out which is true." Aaron bowed his head slightly, though not too low. "What would you have me do, princess?" he asked. With a motion of her hand, she directed the guards to bring forth a machine. It was tall and shaped like a twisting tower, its surface covered with shifting patterns of light. Alien warriors often used it as a trial of skill. It tested not strength but the ability to think quickly and adapt. Few outside her people had ever touched it. "You will face the tower," Princess Rin declared. "If you fail, the court will. Know your courage is nothing but empty pride. If you succeed, then perhaps humans are not as weak as many believe." Aaron stepped closer, studying the machine. It glowed with patterns that moved too quickly for the eye to follow. The guard smirked, certain he would fail. The human envoy placed his hand on the surface, and the patterns shifted into symbols and paths. At first it seemed impossible. The symbols changed faster than he could think. Yet Aaron stayed calm. He watched, he waited, and instead of chasing the patterns, he looked for rhythm. Slowly he began to see it. The machine was not random. It followed rules hidden beneath the chaos. With patience, he touched the right symbols, creating a path of light that climbed higher and higher. The hall grew silent as the human worked. Minutes passed, and the glowing path reached the top of the tower. With a final touch, the machine rang with a soft chime, and the patterns froze. Aaron had completed the trial. Gasps filled the chamber. The guards who had mocked him now stared in disbelief. Even Princess Rin, though her face stayed calm, felt a spark of surprise within her. No human had ever completed the trial before. Aaron turned and bowed slightly. "It was not easy," he said, his voice steady. "But no challenge is impossible if one pays attention." For a long moment, the princess did not reply. She studied him with sharp eyes, searching for weakness, but found only calm determination. Finally, she spoke. "You have done what many of my own warriors cannot. Perhaps there is more to your kind than I believed." The words echoed through the training hall. Soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. They had never heard the princess acknowledge strength in a human before. Aaron stepped back to his place, silent once more. He did not smile, nor did he boast. He simply stood tall, as if the victory belonged not to himself, but to his people. Princess Rin turned away, but her thoughts lingered on him. For the first time, she wondered if this human envoy was not just a visitor, but something more, a spark that could not be ignored. The following day, the court was still unsettled. Rumors spread like fire across the palace. Servants carried whispers from one chamber to another. Guards repeated the story in secret. and even the high nobles discussed it behind closed doors. The human envoy had faced the trial of the tower and had succeeded where many alien warriors had failed. To most of the aliens, this was unthinkable. Humans were seen as weak, their lives too short, their bodies too fragile. Yet Aaron had shown not only patience but also a kind of vision that the others had overlooked. The princess's decision to test him had turned into something greater than she expected. Princess Rin sat in the council chamber, her mind troubled. She was proud of her people and their traditions, but she could not ignore what she had seen. The human had stood calm before her, spoken without fear, and mastered the trial of the tower with a steady hand. Some of her advisors urged her to dismiss it as luck, but she did not believe in luck. She believed in strength, in will, and in proof. That afternoon, she summoned Aaron again. This time the hall was filled not with guards or warriors, but with nobles, scholars, and diplomats. They sat in rows, waiting to see what new test would be placed before the human. Many of them expected him to fail, for they did not want the dignity of their people challenged by a visitor. Aaron walked into the chamber quietly. He wore the same simple clothes with no jewels, no glowing threads, and no signs of wealth. Yet his presence seemed to carry weight. He bowed to the council, then lifted his head with calm eyes. Princess Rin rose from her seat and addressed him. "You have shown patience with the trial of the tower," she said. "But wisdom is more than patience. Strength is more than skill. Today, you will face a test of resolve. This is not a challenge of hands or mind, but of spirit." She motioned, and the guards brought forth an orb of light. The orb shimmered with shifting colors, casting reflections across the chamber. It was known among the aliens as the Orb of Echoes, a device that tested inner will. When held, it sent visions into the mind, illusions designed to break courage and stir fear. Only those with strong resolve could endure it. The nobles leaned forward eagerly. Many of them whispered that the human would not last even a moment. Princess Rin held out the orb. "Take it," she commanded. "Show us whether a human heart can stand against fear." Aaron stepped forward and placed his hands around the orb. At once the light flared and his eyes widened. The chamber fell silent, for no one could see the visions. Only he could. In his mind, he saw darkness closing in. Shapes moved in the shadows, strange and twisted. He heard voices calling his name, some begging, some mocking. Then the images shifted, showing battles, burning skies, and collapsing walls. He saw his people crushed under alien boots, their voices crying for help. The orb pressed deeper, trying to tear away his calm and fill him with despair. Aaron's hands trembled, but he did not release the orb. He closed his eyes, breathing slow and steady. He reminded himself that the visions were not real. Fear was a shadow, nothing more. He thought of his people standing behind him, watching him. He thought of Earth, small yet proud, waiting to be respected. His heart steadied and the trembling stopped. Minutes passed. The light of the orb flickered as if frustrated. Finally, the glow dimmed, and the chamber grew still. Aaron opened his eyes and set the orb back on its stand. The nobles leaned back, in disbelief. Many of them had expected him to fall to his knees, to cry out, to break under the pressure of the Orb of Echoes. Instead, he stood straight, his breathing even, his face calm. Princess Rin studied him with sharp eyes. She had seen many warriors fail the orb, men and women of power who could not face their own fears. Yet the human envoy had endured. She spoke, in a firm voice. "You did not fall. Tell us, human, what did you see?" Aaron answered honestly. "I saw fear, Princess. I saw shadows and voices that tried to weaken me. But I remembered who I am. I remembered where I came from. Fear has no power if we do not give it." A hush fell over the chamber. His words, simple and clear, struck deeper than the nobles expected. They had seen many speak in riddles, in polished speeches filled with pride, but the human spoke with plain truth. For a moment, Princess Rin did not reply. She looked at him, and for the first time, she felt something stir within her. A quiet respect. She had raised her hand in anger when they first met, warning him never to touch her again. Now she wondered if his touch had not been insult, but a sign of honesty, a way of showing he was unafraid of standing close to those greater than him. Finally, she turned to the council. The human has faced the orb of echoes and endured. His resolve is not lesser than ours. The nobles shifted uneasily. Some frowned, others whispered, but none could deny what they had seen. Aaron bowed once more. He did not ask for praise, he did not seek glory. He simply returned to his place, knowing that each test was not for himself alone, but for all of humanity. And in the heart of Princess Rin, the image of the human envoy grew stronger, no longer as a fragile outsider, but as one whose spirit could not be broken. The palace was a place of order and control, but no wall, no guard, and no law could prepare it for what came that evening. The sky above the city darkened as warning bells rang through the towers. Red lights flared across the crystal walls, and the deep hum of shields powering up filled the air. The Empire was under attack. Inside the great hall, Princess Rin was meeting with her council. Aaron stood at the side, listening quietly, when the doors burst open. A soldier ran in, his armor scorched and his voice urgent. "Princess, enemy raiders have broken through the outer defenses. They are inside the palace." The chamber filled with shouts. Nobles demanded protection. Council members argued about defense lines, and guards rushed to form a barrier around the throne. Princess Rin rose, her face calm, but her eyes sharp with fire. She gave quick orders, sending troops to block the main corridors. Yet even as she spoke, the sound of explosions echoed closer. Aaron's heart raced. He was no soldier, no warrior, yet he had seen enough to know danger was near. He stayed close to the side, watching the guards ready their glowing weapons. The air grew thick with tension as the clash of steel and bursts of light shook the palace walls. Then the doors at the far end shattered. A squad of enemy fighters stormed inside, their armor marked with the symbols of a rival house. Their leader raised a weapon and pointed it straight at the throne. The guards rushed forward, but they were outnumbered, forced into battle in the center of the chamber. Amid the chaos, one of the raiders slipped through the fight, his blade glowing with deadly heat. He rushed straight toward the throne where Princess Rin stood. For a heartbeat, the nobles froze, too stunned to move. Aaron did not think. He moved. His steps carried him faster than reason, his body fueled by instinct alone. He threw himself between the princess and the attacker, grabbing a fallen guard's shield. The raider's blade struck, sparks flying as the shield cracked under the blow. Aaron gritted his teeth, forcing the weapon aside with all his strength. The princess gasped, her silver glow brightening as she saw the human blocking the attack meant for her. Aaron swung the shield forward, knocking the raider off balance. Then, with desperate force, he shoved him back into the clash of soldiers. Another enemy broke free and charged. Aaron grabbed the hilt of a dropped blade. It was heavier than any weapon he had ever held, the alien metal humming in his hand. He raised it awkwardly but firmly, blocking another strike aimed at the princess. His arms burned, but he did not let go. The guards finally surged back, cutting down the raiders one by one until the chamber fell silent again. The last enemy fell, and the sound of steel faded, replaced by the heavy breathing of survivors. Aran lowered the shield and the blade, his chest heaving. His arms trembled from the weight and his heart pounded in his ears. Slowly he turned to face Princess Rin. She stood tall, her glow still shining, but her eyes were wide with something he had never seen before. Shock mixed with something deeper. The nobles stared as well, whispering to one another. None of them had expected the human envoy to act. He was no soldier, yet he had stood in the path of danger when many of them had frozen. Princess Rin stepped forward. Her voice, though quiet, carried through the chamber. "You shielded me." Aaron nodded, still breathing hard. "You were in danger. I could not stand and watch." Her eyes searched his face. She was used to warriors who fought because they were trained, because it was their duty, or because they sought glory. But this human had acted without order, without training, and without thought for his own safety. He had acted simply because it was right. The council chamber filled with uneasy silence. Some nobles frowned, unwilling to admit that a human had saved their princess. Others stared with respect they could not put into words. The guards, who had seen the act with their own eyes, looked at Aaron with a new kind of recognition. Princess Rin turned to her people. "The raiders are defeated. See to the wounded. Secure the palace." Her orders were sharp and steady, yet her gaze returned to Aaron. When the chamber began to clear, she stepped closer to him, her voice lowered so that only he could hear. "You could have died, human. Why risk your life for me?" Aaron met her eyes, his voice calm though his body still ached. "Life is precious, princess. Whether human or alien, no crown or title changes that. You were in danger, and I could not let you fall." Her breath caught for just a moment. His words, simple and honest, cut through the pride and formality that surrounded her life. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever risked so much without seeking reward. The sound of soldiers returning pulled her away. She turned, her silver braids swinging behind her, but her thoughts lingered on the human envoy. The memory of his shield raised before her, his body standing as her defense, burned into her mind. That night, as the palace repaired its wounds and the city lights shone again, Princess Rin sat alone in her chamber. For the first time in her life, she wondered if the strength of her empire was not the only kind of power in the stars. Perhaps hidden within the fragile frame of a human, there was a strength that even her people had overlooked. And in the silence of that night, she whispered a thought she would never share aloud. Perhaps this human is not so weak after all. The palace was quiet the next morning, but the echoes of the previous night's battle lingered in every corridor. Guards patrolled with more caution, servants whispered in hushed tones, and nobles walked with careful steps, as if expecting danger to return. Yet amidst the tension, a different energy filled the palace, a new awareness of the human envoy, Aaron. Princess Rin sat in her private chamber, the glow of her silver skin soft against the morning light. She watched the sun rise over the city, thinking about what had happened the night before. The rescue had been reckless by any standard of her people, yet it had revealed something unexpected. Aaron had acted without orders, without concern for rank or danger. He had chosen courage because it was right, not because it was commanded. The door to her chamber opened quietly, and a guard announced, "The human envoy requests an audience, princess." Rin rose from her seat. "Bring him in," she said, her voice calm but firm. The guard bowed and left. A moment later, Aaron stepped inside. He bowed lightly, then straightened, his posture steady and respectful. His eyes held calm determination, yet there was no arrogance. "You requested to speak with me, human," the princess said as she motioned for him to sit across from her. "Explain why you risked your life in the council chamber last night." Aaron did not hesitate. He met her gaze, his words simple and honest. "You were in danger, princess. I could not stand by and watch you fall. To me, life is valuable, and no title changes that." Princess Rin studied him, her eyes narrowing slightly. She had heard many words in her life, spoken with precision, flattery or threat. But Aaron's words carried no hidden meaning. They were not clever or polished. They were plain, yet they had weight. "And you did not consider your own safety?" she asked, her voice steady. "I did," he said calmly, "but I decided that protecting you was more important than my own life at that moment. Fear does not guide action, choice does." The princess leaned back, her fingers brushing lightly against the edge of her chair. She had faced many challenges, yet she had never encountered someone who saw the world so clearly. For her people, power was measured in fleets, weapons, and authority. Yet here was a human, without armies, without weapons, who displayed strength that no machine or soldier could match. "You speak as if life and duty are one," she said softly, almost to herself. "Yet most of my people believe duty is obedience, not choice." Aaron tilted his head slightly. "Obedience without understanding is not true duty. We must act because it is right, not only because it is commanded." For a moment, silence filled the room. Princess Rin realized that his words were not just philosophy, they were action. His courage in the council chamber had proved his point. Humans may appear small, weak and fragile, yet their strength was quiet, deep, and unyielding when guided by principle. She leaned forward, curiosity replacing her usual caution. "You are different from what I expected." Most humans would have panicked or waited for orders or avoided danger entirely. Aaron's lips curved slightly into a small, calm smile. Perhaps they would. "I do not know all humans, but I know the courage is not limited to one kind of body or one kind of being. Even those who seem small can stand taller than giants when they choose to." The princess's eyes softened, though her expression remained regal. She thought about her people, trained for generations in combat and protocol, and she realized that even her most skilled warriors might have hesitated in the council chamber. Yet Aaron had acted without thought for recognition, without expectation of reward. He had simply done what was right. For the first time, Rin felt a quiet admiration for a human. She had raised her hand to warn him when they first met, demanding respect and warning against familiarity. Now she understood that respect was not commanded. It was earned through action, through courage, and through honesty. "You risked your life for someone you barely know," she said finally. "Why does that matter to you?" Aaron paused, thinking, carefully. "Because every life matters, Princess. I cannot judge who is important by rank or race. What matters is courage, kindness, and the choice to do what is right. You were in danger, and I could not let that happen. That is all." The princess was silent for a long moment, the words settling in her mind. She realized that humans, though small and inexperienced compared to her empire, possessed a strength her people had overlooked. It was not measured in fleets or weapons, but in courage, honesty, and the ability to act rightly under pressure. She rose from her chair and walked closer to him. "Perhaps I misjudged your kind," she said softly, her voice almost gentle. "I thought humans were weak. I see now that I was wrong." Aaron bowed his head slightly. "I do not seek to change your view, Princess. I only seek to act rightly." Her lips curved into a small, thoughtful smile. For the first time she saw him not as a human visitor, fragile and small, but as someone whose spirit could stand equal to her own. A shift had begun, not just in her mind but in her perception of what strength truly meant. That day the palace felt different. Even the walls seemed less imposing, and the air carried a quiet sense of possibility. The princess had begun to see humanity in a new light, not as weak or small but as capable of courage and resolve beyond expectation. And in the presence of Aaron, she realized that her world might be larger, richer, and stronger than she had ever imagined. The palace corridors were unusually quiet as morning light spilled across the crystal floors. The aftermath of the attack still lingered in every corner. Soldiers repaired walls, guards patrolled more carefully, and servants moved with a measured pace. Even the nobles walked with caution, their whispers carrying stories of the human who had saved the princess. Princess Rin moved through the halls with a purpose. Her silver glow seemed sharper than usual, reflecting both authority and thought. She had spent hours considering the human envoy Aaron and the way he had acted, not as a visitor, but as someone who understood courage. Something inside her had shifted. For the first time, she felt that strength was not defined solely by her people's traditions, by fleets of ships or armies of soldiers. Strength could come from determination, honesty, and the willingness to act rightly even in danger. When she entered the council chamber, nobles and advisors were already assembled. The murmurs quieted as she approached. Today was not a regular council meeting. Today she intended to make a statement, one that would challenge the long-held views of many around her. She motioned to Aaron to step forward. The room fell completely, silent as he approached, his posture steady, his eyes calm. No human had been called to address the council in this way before. The nobles leaned forward, curiosity mixed with skepticism evident in their expressions. Yesterday, this human faced a challenge that even some of our own warriors could not endure, Princess Rin began, her voice firm and commanding. He faced the orb of echoes and the trial of the tower, and he acted to protect me when danger came to the palace. His courage is not lesser than ours." Gasps and whispers filled the chamber. Some nobles leaned back, displeased that the princess spoke of a human in this manner. Others exchanged glances, unsure whether to admire or question what they were hearing. Aaron stood quietly, listening. He had never sought praise or recognition. His actions had been instinctive, guided by principle rather than desire for glory. Yet the room waited for his words, expecting either humility or explanation. He stepped forward, his voice calm and clear. "I am not a warrior of this empire," he said. "I am a human, but courage does not belong to one race or species. When we act rightly, when we protect life and honor our word, we show strength. That is what matters, not the size of our ships or the number of our soldiers." Silence fell. His words, simple and honest, struck a chord deeper than any speech of politics or authority. The council members could not easily dismiss what they had seen and heard. They had expected failure, weakness, and fear, yet they were confronted with truth and bravery. Princess Rin continued, her voice steady. "From this day forward, humans are not to be considered insignificant in this court. Their actions, when guided by principle, can inspire respect. Let their courage be known and recognized." Some nobles muttered under their breath, uneasy, at the idea of acknowledging strength outside their own empire, yet even they could not deny the evidence. Aran had acted decisively when faced with danger, and the princess's endorsement gave his actions weight beyond measure. One of the older advisors cleared his throat. "Princess, do you truly intend to honor a human as one worthy of our respect and consideration?" "Yes," Rin said firmly. "His courage and resolve are proof, and it is not just his strength, but the example he sets that matters. We should judge not only by birth or title, but by action and character." The council shifted. Some nodded reluctantly, others studied Aaron with newfound interest. Whispers spread, but this time they were tempered by admiration. The human envoy was no longer just a visitor. He was a symbol of something greater. Aaron bowed slightly, acknowledging the council without pride. "I am grateful, Princess, but my people do not need titles or recognition to act rightly. Courage and honesty are enough." The princess regarded him silently, then motioned for the council to proceed with their work. Yet the atmosphere had changed. Where once humans had been seen as fragile outsiders, there was now curiosity, respect, and cautious admiration. Alliances within the court began to shift. Some nobles whispered of new strategies, of cooperation, and even of learning from this human's example. Later, as the council adjourned, Rin walked with Aaron through the quiet corridors. "You have changed more than this council knows," she said softly. "Your courage has reminded me that strength is not only in fleets or armies, but in action and principle." Aaron smiled faintly. "I do not seek to change the world, Princess. I only try to do what is right." She paused, her eyes thoughtful. "Sometimes what is right can change the world. You have shown that humans have value beyond what many believed." As they continued through the halls, the palace felt different. There was a sense of possibility, a quiet understanding that courage and honesty could inspire even the proudest of empires. The alliance forged in that council chamber was not only between humans and aliens, but between ideals, action, principle, and respect across worlds. And in that moment, Princess Rin realized that the human who had once seemed small and fragile was now a figure whose strength could shape the future. His presence was no longer a curiosity, but a force the court could not ignore. The palace had returned to its normal rhythm, but the events of the past days were still fresh in every mind. Soldiers trained with renewed focus, nobles discussed alliances in hushed tones, and servants moved with careful awareness. Amidst all, this one fact was clear: the human envoy, Aaron, had earned a place of respect in the empire. Princess Rin walked through the great hall, her silver glow soft in the morning light. She observed the council members as they prepared for the day's meeting. Some cast curious glances toward the area where Aaron stood, quietly observing from the side. Others, who had been doubtful of his presence before, now whispered in recognition of his courage. Aaron had spent the morning learning about the palace routines, listening carefully to the advisors, and quietly noting the flow of activity. He did not seek attention or praise, yet his actions from the past week had given him a subtle authority. People watched him not because of rank or birth, but because of respect earned through deeds. The council chamber filled with nobles, generals, and diplomats, as the princess called for the meeting to begin. Today was different from any other council. Today, she intended to make a declaration that would redefine how humans were viewed within the empire. She stood at the head of the chamber, her silver glow bright and steady. "Council members," she said, "we have witnessed courage and resolve in unexpected places. A human among us has shown strength, wisdom, and honesty beyond what many believed possible. His actions have protected this palace, saved lives, and reminded us all of what true courage means." The room was silent. Even the most skeptical nobles found themselves paying attention. Princess Rin turned toward Aaron, who stepped forward with calm dignity. "You have earned respect not by title, wealth, or fleet, but by your actions," she continued. "From this day forward, humans will no longer be seen as fragile or insignificant. Let this council remember that strength can be found in the heart, in choices, and in deeds." Whispers filled the chamber, some of surprise, some of reluctant agreement. Nobles shifted in their seats, realizing that the princess's words carried weight beyond debate. She did not speak lightly, and her endorsement of Iran was more powerful than any command they had ever received. Iran bowed his head slightly, his expression calm. "I do not seek recognition, princess. My actions were guided by what was right. That is all I ask." Princess Rin's eyes softened. She had once raised her hand in warning, demanding respect through fear. Now, she saw him not only as courageous, but as a reminder that respect must be earned, not commanded. A senior general stepped forward. "Princess, if this human can act with such bravery and wisdom, perhaps there is much we can learn from him and from his people. Perhaps alliances and understanding will strengthen our empire more than we realized." Rin nodded. "Precisely. Strength is not only in power and weapons, but in courage, principle, and the ability to act rightly under pressure. Aaron has shown that humanity has these qualities in abundance." The council murmured, many nodding slowly. The shift in perception was subtle but real. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were now figures of respect, capable of contributing to the empire not only in thought but in action. Later, as the council adjourned, Princess Rin found herself walking with Aaron along the balcony overlooking the city. The morning sun reflected off the crystal towers, painting the sky with colors that seemed almost unreal. She watched the human silently for a moment. "You have changed the court's view of your people," she said quietly. "Not by words alone, but by courage, honesty, and resolve." Aaron glanced at her, calm as ever. "I acted because it was right, princess. That is all anyone can do. Recognition is not needed to do what is right." She smiled faintly, the first time her expression had softened completely in days. "Perhaps that is why your courage is so powerful. You act without expectation, without desire for reward. That is a rare quality." The two stood side by side, looking out over the city. The palace below was alive with movement, but there was a sense of harmony now, a feeling that the past events had shifted more than just perception. They had changed the heart of the empire in a small but meaningful way. Later that evening, the princess held a private gathering. Nobles and advisors were invited, and Aaron was present. There was no formal ceremony, no grand speech, only quiet acknowledgement of deeds. Yet everyone present understood the message. Humans, led by example, could earn respect equal to any alien in the empire. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Princess Rin turned to Aaron. "You have proven that courage, honesty, and resolve are greater than birth or rank. I will remember this, and I will ensure others do as well." Aaron nodded, his calm presence steady and reassuring. "Thank you, Princess. I will continue to act rightly no matter what comes." And so humanity found its place in the court, not as visitors or outsiders, but as a people whose courage and spirit could stand equal to the proudest of empires. The human envoy had earned respect through action, and his deeds would be remembered for generations as a testament to the strength that lies in principle, courage, and honor. The palace was no longer just a seat of power. It had become a place where the measure of a being was not in title or wealth, but in the quiet strength to stand, to act, and to protect what is right. And in the heart of Princess Rin, the memory of the human who dared to act with courage would remain forever, a symbol of what true respect and strength truly mean.